are going to be on that flight. I warn you, we are going to be on that flight because we were told by your own people that we were okay. So you take responsibility and you get us on the flight.
Unfortunately.
There is no unfortunate. You are unfortunate.
That's an angry passenger right there. We've all been there, and I admit it's a nuisance, airplane delays. Today we'll be looking at 5 reasons why airplanes are delayed, and especially why these so-called slots cause these ridiculous delays. Also, why do pilots let their passengers sit and wait on board on the plane and don't take off? And what's that got to do with highway traffic? So let's not delay this video and let's get started.
1383, runway 27, current takeoff. United 15,
I assume many of you have been there. You're waiting at the gate and the lady at the desk makes an announcement saying that your flight is being delayed to technical reasons. So possible reason number 5 is technical problems. Now I know that many passengers think that pilots come up with some technical malfunction, although the delay is caused by other nature. If a pilot states it's a technical issue, trust me, there is a technical issue. Often the problem is only minor, but could eventually have an impact on the flight. I'm talking as small as a little light bulb that's broken in the cockpit and the plane is going nowhere. I personally had to switch to another plane after encountering a bird strike on the previous flight, and the engine had to go through a thorough investigation. Now picture 180 passengers boarding and deboarding in 30 minutes. Happy faces. But by the way, I'll take any delay due to a technical failure, or would you set off in your car with a loose tire? Reason number 4, crew member arriving late to the plane. It's a rare case, but sometimes the crew and passengers have to wait for a missing crew member. Now don't get the image that the late crew member just had a lay-in and arrives late to work. Most likely the colleague was called out of standby as one of the other crew members called in sick just prior check-in. And most standby duties demand that you have 1 hour to get ready, drive to the airport, go through security and get taken to the now delayed plane. So sarcastically applauding the crew member onto the plane isn't cool at all, as he or she most likely risked their life driving like a maniac over the highway to be there on time just for you. So don't do that. Reason number 3, the late or vanished passenger. One of the airport's total mysteries, a checked-in passenger who is unable to find his boarding gate. His luggage obviously made it onto the plane, but he has vanished somewhere in between. He even gets the luxury of hearing his name being called out over the terminal PA system. Now, as the passenger, or at least his luggage, now creates a potential security threat to all other passengers on board, the loading crew has to unload all pieces of baggage to find his or her suitcase. That will cost time, obviously, and just as the luggage is found, he shows up. Well, we often set off then without his luggage just to teach him a lesson. Reason number 2, going on strike. If you live in Europe, you've all been impacted by a country which has air traffic controllers who just love to go on strike at least once a year and disrupt the entire European airspace. Now, not to mention any names, but they're taking their country's motto a little too serious. And their southerly neighbors aren't any much better. So sorry guys, but you make way too much money to go on strike. Now even worse, if your airline goes on strike, leaving you stuck at your departure airport for days if you're unlucky. Now, doing the research for this video, I wasn't surprised that the famous German airline is the record holder in strike days. Well, I'm a pilot and my colleagues had good reason enough to go on strike, so good for them. Especially the airline with the lady playing the harp on their tail fin. They have every reason to go on strike, believe me. Well done, boys. Also, very effective in causing delays are airport ground staff strikes. Airports always promote themselves as safe havens, but the first thing they'll cut is the salary of the security staff. Would you like to be shouted at passengers because you have to search their luggage but you're only being paid at minimum wage? I highly doubt that. So please do me a favor and approach these people with the necessary respect instead of complaining their job is useless. And the number 1 reason for delays are slots. Now, I'm sure you might have heard a pilot say Ladies and gentlemen, I am very sorry to tell you, but we've just received a slot time which starts in 2 hours. But we're hoping to get released a little earlier as we've just sent a ready message. So what does all that mean? Picture a 4-lane highway narrowed down to 1 lane due to roadworks. Now, okay, everyone pictures this, sad reality unfortunately. Now let's say the sky is also a 4-lane highway and the airport is the roadworks with literally just 1 lane to land on. Now the only difference to the highway example is that the air traffic controllers and airports want to avoid congested traffic in the sky prior to that 1-lane runway, because no plane carries hours and hours of fuel to wait in the sky for their landing clearance. Now every airliner has to file a flight plan stating the flight level they want to fly, aircraft type, routing, etc., but more importantly, the flight time and speed. Now, the air traffic controllers at Eurocontrol, for example, check how many planes approach an airport at a certain time of day and compare that to its maximum capacity the airport can handle. But it's not just the airport. They also have to consider how many planes fly through or within a controlled sector to not overload the controller. Because overloading a controller by giving him or her too many aircraft at once is just way too risky. Now the controller then might split it into 2 sectors and share the work with another controller. But if that is getting out of hand as well, Eurocontrol will send out so-called CTOT, a calculated takeoff time, or better known as slot times. Now the purpose of a CTOT or a slot gives the controller a future prediction of how many planes he can expect in his sector at a certain time and safely guide the planes onto that 1 lane or ILS without having to put them into a holding. So our highway example would then look like this. You have all the space, but you'll be using up only 1 lane as every car or plane sets off at a predetermined takeoff time, resulting in a smoother flow of traffic. Now there are various types of slots. Most common are the weather slots. Now let's say you're sitting at New York JFK Airport wanting to fly to Washington DC and a massive thunderstorm is sitting over the White House. Now the controller most likely will give you a weather slot, because why would he let you take off already knowing that you'll be holding somewhere north of Washington before the thunderstorm clears? Same goes for airports which have low visibility procedures in progress. Everything works at a slower pace and the handling capacity is much lower. Then there are flow management slots. That, to my knowledge, means that air traffic control hasn't got enough controllers. This happened to me numerous times on weekends flying into western parts of Germany. Now keep in mind, an aircraft is taking off or entering European airspace every 3 seconds, so there is a constant need in air traffic controllers. But then there are airport slots. If you fly to the islands of Greece, for example, some airports only have 2 to 3 parking spots. So air traffic coordinates your departure and arrival time that you don't have to wait at the destination airport until your parking slot clears. And as a pilot, you can anticipate its slot time because sometimes you get a clearance to drastically reduce your speed during cruise, and then you know that your destination airport is reaching its maximum capacity or is experiencing some discrepancies like runway closures due to snow removal or similar nature. Now, the other word the pilot mentioned are we've sent out a ready message. So what does that mean? Now, first of all, you would only hear a pilot say that once all passengers are on board, and then you wait and wait. But why does the pilot board all passengers if he already knows we're not going to be taking off anytime soon? Well, he doesn't really know how long he's going to be waiting for his startup clearance, because by sending out a ready message, he is letting the controller know that he and his plane are ready to take off at any time before the actual slot time. Meaning, if there's any improvement maybe in weather or overall traffic, the controller would then contact the pilots and give them an earlier departure time by saying, Air Joe 125, slot has been cancelled, startup approved, be airborne within the next 15 minutes. So therefore, the pilots request all passengers to be on board because there is no way to board a plane in under 15 minutes with passengers like this. So please do yourself a favor and don't get furious with the cabin crew members or pilots. Trust me when I say they want to get airborne as much as you do, but still passengers always find some reason to complain one way or another. If they're delayed, they complain. If it's turbulent, they complain. But that the pilots and air traffic controllers are actually preventing them from a near-death experience with a bad weather slot doesn't strike their mind at all. And one thing I have learned of being in this industry for over 10 years now, do never ever underestimate the weather. That's it for today. Thank you very much for your time. To become my wingman, hit that subscribe button right there and the notification bell so you won't miss out upcoming videos. And don't forget, a good pilot is always learning. See you next week. All the best. Your Captain Joe.